My computer probably has enough space. Okay. So today we're just going to be doing the review. So once you have it downloaded, go ahead and give me a thumbs up on the on Zoom. Just give me a little thumbs up reaction. Very cool. All right, seems like most of you got it, so I'm just going to go ahead and start. So once you have that open up, we're going to start with blogs. So you need to know the rate at which people read websites versus the rate at which people read print. Right? So do they read websites slower or faster than print? Can anybody answer that for me?
Slower.
A little bit more slowly, and part of the reason are websites linear or non-linear mediums?
They're non-linear.
Non-linear because you're jumping all over the place. You might be looking at links, you might be looking at pictures, you could be going to different websites while you're reading, and so that tends to be why you read them a little bit more slowly versus print. Print is a more linear medium, you're just reading it straight through. And that's also what makes websites a more active medium versus a passive medium. Technically, I would consider books a little bit of an active medium as well, but active, remember, is just you are involved in it in some way. You have to do something in order to get something back out of it. So like movies would be an extremely passive medium, video games would be an extremely active medium, and comparatively between websites and books, websites are active versus print being a little bit more passive. So those three things at the top of the blogs part, those should be pretty easy to keep in mind, just as far as whether they're active, whether they're linear or non-linear, how fast people read websites versus print, etc., etc. And then finally, formal versus informal writing. If I use some like non-standard grammar and I sort of talk to the audience and you know, greet them as a friend, is that more appropriate for print writing or is that more appropriate for blog writing?
For blog.
For blog, yeah. Blogs are written a little bit more informally. So remember that about them. Search engine optimization or SEO, pretty much if you know that term and what it means, you should be in good shape. So remember, search engine optimization is really just the idea that you are trying to get your website seen faster than other websites. It's the things that you do to make your website show up on Google first before everybody else does. And keywords are involved in that. We'll get into keywords in just a second. But as far as parts of blogs, there's a little asterisk by that because there are a lot of parts of blogs and you will need to know how many parts of blogs there are as well as the individual parts, what are they? So I would go ahead and read your book chapter over blogs, reread that as far as knowing what parts of blogs are. But I'll give you just a few of them. You should at least have, you know, headline, byline, dateline. You should have body copy somewhere. You should have a comment button somewhere, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So at least those few parts, and then I would just, I'm not going to go over that whole thing, but go back and read your books as far as what all of the parts of blogs need to be. And then look at your what you turned in for blogs too. That should give you basically a good idea of here's everything I need to have on a blog because I had to include it on my assignment. Links, the only thing about links is you just need to know what they tend to go to. So again, I would read your book for that, but one example is, you know, links tend to go to social media websites. You had to include a couple social media links. They tend to go to videos. They tend to go to other websites. But in general, these are all going to be multiple choice questions on the test, but in general, you know, if you get a question about like, what are links not usually going to, or are these things what links go to, just kind of know where links tend to lead. What are links typically used for? And you all know what links are. They're highlighted words in a blog. I mean, that should be extremely obvious to all of you because you grew up with the internet being pretty close to what it is today. So reading websites versus print, really that's all just those first three things that we talked about reading them more slowly, linear versus nonlinear, active versus passive. If you remember those, and then formal versus informal writing is a little bit different, but reading websites versus print, you should, if you got those first three items, you should know that fine. Keywords, those are words or phrases that are included in web content that help you with search engine optimization. So again, search engine optimization, I'm trying to get things at the top of Google. So if I am selling Jeeps and I want people to, if I have like an off-road vehicle blog, but I specifically want to use it to sell Jeeps, I would put Jeep in there a whole bunch of times so that when people search for Jeeps, my blog is one of the first things to pop up, right? So keywords are just phrases that are used in web or online content to help search engine optimization. Purpose of blogs, just know that one of the major purposes of blogs, there are several, but one of the major purposes of blogs are to add kind of a human face to an organization, to a company, to a nonprofit, whatever it is. It's just to kind of informally address whatever audience you're trying to reach. So as opposed to having like a newsletter, like you guys wrote at the beginning of class or closer to the start of the semester, right? You wrote the, not newsletter, the news release, which was a public relations document, and that was meant to, obviously drum up some public support for your company or whoever you're working for. In that case, it was Chipotle. That was very formal. It was more like a news story. Blogs are a little bit more interactive, and they're more trying to address the audience directly. They're sort of they add more of a human element to the company or corporation or nonprofit you work for. The best way to learn how to write any style of writing. Does anybody know the answer to that? Hopefully. What's the best way to learn how to write in any style? Because we've done like 7 different styles. What's the best way to learn how to write in each of them?
Is it AP?
No, that's one style. You only really used Associated Press style, I think, 2 or 3 times in this class. Everything else was a little bit different.
Look at examples of it.
You're very close. Yeah, so look at examples or read that style of writing. That's the best way to learn how to write in any style, is just read a lot of it. So if you're trying to write a public service announcement, go look up public service announcements and read them. How are they written? So like when we looked at examples of videos of public service announcements, that should have given you some idea of like, oh, okay, this is how I should write the public service announcement. Print advertisements. If you weren't sure how to write a print advertisement, you could look up, you could just look in magazines and go like, okay, this is typically kind of how a print advertisement is written, or you could look at your template for that. So the best way to learn how to write anything in any style is really just to read something that's written in that style. Same thing for Associated Press. If you're trying to write a news story, you would just look up Associated Press articles and see how those were written. Incorporating multimedia. All you really need to know about that is that yes, blogs do incorporate multimedia from video to images to social media, and it is a very good idea to do so. It keeps people engaged with your content. So is there any part of the blogs section I need to go back over? Okay, take that as a no. Social media. So the importance of social media branding. Essentially, social media, the main use for it is to create a personality for your company, or that is something very important for you to do. So in the same way that blogs kind of create this human face of the company, they're informally addressing the audience. They're kind of keeping people up to date on their goings on. Social media can be used for kind of a similar reason. So it makes it very clear what your company's brand is, and it helps create a personality for whoever you're writing on behalf of. So for instance, like Wendy's, the fast food giant, is really known for their snarkiness on Twitter. We had Kaylee had the example last time of Gymshark, and obviously their personality is very like, let's all be in shape and pretty people. And Let's see, what other personalities are there for companies? I think like McDonald's would just be a very happy company. And so social media just reinforces your brand by creating that personality for your company. It's you're interacting with people as if they are, as if your company is a person. So if you've ever seen like Wendy's tweets is always the example I use because they are just so well known for what they do on social media. If they're still doing it, I think they may have calmed down a little bit, but they're still pretty snarky and sarcastic. Um, anyway, what posts get the most and least engagement between videos, images, and text? Just know that it pretty much goes in that order. If you get a question about which gets more engagement, videos is pretty much going to be king. Any sort of video content you post to social media is going to get the most interaction. People may not stay if you have like a 2-minute video. People may not stay for the whole thing, but you're much more likely to get engagement on videos you post than you are on just plain text. Same thing with images. If you at least post like an image with your social media content, it's more likely that people are going to see it or check it out. You're probably going to get a lot more engagement. People are going to comment on it more. People are going to like it more, share it more, that sort of thing. So they are going to get way more engagement most engagement from videos, then from images, and then plain text, just text on its own gets the least amount of engagement typically. The suggested frequency of buy now posts is about 20%. Does anybody remember why you should keep it that low? Just throw out a guess. Why should you keep it as low as 20% for buy now posts? Repetition.
So people don't get annoyed.
So people don't get annoyed. Yeah. So that people don't associate because remember, social media, what are you using it for? You're using it to create a personality. You're using it to engage with your audience. The audience is probably not going to feel that engaged with is if everything you post is just like, oh, here's another sale from Kohl's. If you were working for Kohl's, you might want to do something like, Rachel was really happy with like this dress she bought from Kohl's and like these shoes and stuff. And like, it doesn't tell you to buy anything now. It just says like, oh, here's like a spotlight of one of our customers or something. And then, maybe go into like, our customers love sales, but not really say buy now. Or just engage with the audience naturally. People are going to be much more likely to follow you on social media if there's a reason to follow you outside of you selling them something. And so you want to limit like all of the people know that you're a company, but you want to limit those posts to about 20% of what you do, because people are going to get annoyed and stop following you if all it ever is sales. Because if people are searching for that, they'll find it. The reason people follow brands on social media tends to have more to do with their personality as a brand. Okay. Public relations audience or PR audience for social media, just know that it is a very broad audience. If you are a public relations practitioner on social media, you're going to hit a lot of different targets. So for instance, if you were to advertise on a TV show that aired 3 p.m. in the afternoon, you're probably hitting like an older demographic and maybe people that stay at home, and it's a pretty narrow audience. Whereas for social media, any audience it's going to be a really broad audience no matter what you do, which is one of the benefits of social media. You're hitting a very broad swath of people all at once, right? Anyway. Opinion leaders, social media influencers, those are the same thing. That's just two different phrases for pretty much the same people. But just be able to give me some examples and know what they do, which is kind of in the name, right? Social media influencers influence people to buy things or do things. Opinion leaders will also, influence people to have certain opinions about products, and therefore people are more likely to buy them. So like, one of the Jenners or the Kardashians, I think, has their own makeup line, and so they would be a social media influencer. If anybody remembers their name, you can throw it out. but one of them, I know that a couple of them are social media influencers or opinion leaders. So just know what those are and what they do, and I think most of you should know that. Kylie Jenner, I think, is the, so Rachel's right on that. I believe Kylie Jenner would be the one with the own makeup line. But just know what they are, what they do. Ad blocking, just know that ad blocking does pose a threat to digital advertising. So any sort of ad blocking program does threaten your ability to create digital advertisements, whether it be on social media or blogs or videos or whatever. Obviously, if people have ad blocking software, it is going to kind of cut down on your ability to reach people. Facebook dominance, just know that Facebook is pretty much the top social media that's used by marketers and PR people and advertisers. And it's simply because Facebook has the most people on it. You're hitting the broadest of targets when you're on Facebook, just because you're talking to a lot of people at once. And I know that that sounds weird to a lot of you, because a lot of you probably just have Facebook to, pretend to your family that this is the way you are. And then Snapchat and Instagram is where you're actually doing all your social media. But Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter have a little bit narrower audiences. Twitter, not so much, but Facebook by far has the broadest, largest audience. And so most marketers and PR people are going to use that first for their social media marketing. Traffic to websites, just know that's one of the benefits of social media is to increase traffic to websites. So people who are spending a whole lot of time on Wendy's Twitter account or on Gymshark and Instagram or on Kylie Jenner's makeup posts, they're much more likely to click a link that takes them to a website where they can buy certain products or where they can see kind of what's going on with the company. So just know that social media does increase traffic to websites. And then customer info, remember that one of the goals of social media messaging, one of the reasons that social media in particular is really good for advertisers and public relations people and etc., is that they're essentially just gathering information on you that they could not otherwise gather without like a survey. If they see that, they can pretty easily see that, like, okay, mostly people who are interacting with us were born in 1995. That means that our demographic is a little bit younger. Let's start advertising to appeal to that group. Or let's say that they start realizing, like a company doesn't know necessarily who their audience is, and then they see social media and they see like, okay, it's mostly females and between the ages of 18 to 35. Let's start making marketing messages for that. But they're gathering info on consumers when they're doing social media messaging, because they can kind of see who's interacting with them and sort of make decisions from there. And then vice versa, if they already kind of know who they're trying to hit, then they know like, okay, our audience is mostly on Instagram or our audience is mostly on Snapchat. And then they can start, kind of appealing more to that demographic. But gathering customer information, again, is just one of the goals, one of the benefits of doing your marketing on social media. It's much easier to gather customer info that way. All right. Strategic communications field in social media, 10 tips for writing on social media. Those are both going to be both in your online module and in your book. So that's going to be something that I'm not going to tell you outright. You are going to have to just kind of do a little bit of research on your own for those things. So know what their 10 tips for writing on social media are, and then just know how people in the strategic communications field, and strategic communications is pretty much what this class is dedicated to. Aside from news writing, you also have public relations, advertising, and marketing. But just know how those people use social media, and then know 10 tips for writing on social media. And again, just look in your book, look in your online modules. Planning social media posts, the main thing there is just to understand that doing social media off the cuff as though you were just using a company account as yourself is the wrong idea. You always want to plan what you are saying for social media posts, because if you post the wrong thing, you could get fired, the company could go down in flames. There's a lot of risk to posting on social media on behalf of the company. So you always want to plan out what you're going to say. You do not want to use, like you don't want to, if you're working for Wendy's or McDonald's or whoever, you don't want to log in there and then just use it like it's your personal account. That's almost always a bad idea. So you always want to plan social media posts out. You know, have here, we're going to do it at this time. We're going to hit this audience. This is what we're going to say. All of that should be planned out in advance, right? The way that you did your social media posts, remember there were dates on them, and then you had a Thanksgiving theme to all of them, but you planned out what you were going to say. And then addressing audience needs, wants, and concerns. Again, that's just something that social media is particularly good at because you can address those directly. People commenting, you know, their concerns and what they want from the company and what they need from you. It's very easy to go in the comment section and reply to that immediately. So that's another benefit of social media. All right, any questions about social media? I would imagine not, but just let me know if there are. Let's see, nothing in the chat, so gonna go keep going. All right, advertisements. Can anybody define advertisements for me? It's a very long definition, but does anybody happen to have that written down somewhere? No? All right, so advertisements, they are persuasive messages sent by identified sponsors to targeted consumers through controlled media. Okay, so advertisements, if somebody asks you what an advertisement is, you probably would not give them this sentence, but they're persuasive messages, right? They're messages that are intended to persuade you to do something, usually to take an action, whether that be buying something, whether that be going to a website, whether that be looking up a sale. They are intended to get you to take action. So they are persuasive messages sent by identified sponsors. So if you get an advertisement from McDonald's or Nike, you know that it came from McDonald's or Nike because their logo shows up, or they identify themselves in the script or something like that. So persuasive messages sent by identified sponsors to targeted consumers, so they know who they're trying to reach. Again, if you're advertising something in a magazine or on radio or in a television advertisement, you have a demographic in mind. You have probably a psychographic in mind. You have an age range. You have male or female. You have you know, kind of generally what are these people's income who are watching this show. So you have a targeted consumer base through controlled media. And can anybody tell me what controlled media is versus uncontrolled media? That one should be easy. What does it mean that advertisements are done through controlled media?
Through the companies, right? Like you're not independent. Is that what? Or
Not really. So why is advertising controlled while public service announcements are uncontrolled?
They have to pay to be on air.
Yeah, so advertisement, so Oscar, you had a good guess, but the reason that advertisements are controlled media is because, remember, the advertisers are paying to say, we want this ad to air at this time during this TV program for this long of a time frame, whether it be 30 seconds, 15 seconds. We want it airing exactly at this time, exactly for this amount of time. And they're able to do that because they paid to be able to do that. And so that's what makes it controlled media. They have control over where all of this is going, right? Where all of it's going when it airs and all that good stuff. All right, benefits versus product features. So you all had to do this for the pillow pad. So give me a product feature of the pillow pad.
Tri-ledge design.
Tri-ledge design, and then what would a benefit of that be?
Your neck doesn't hurt? Or
Yeah, because because you can rest something on that tri-ledge design. The benefit is that you can view things more easily. At least that was the conceit of the advertisement. So that's a good illustration of product feature is just something about the product. It's just a fact about the product. It's a feature of it. Whereas benefit is, okay, what does that product feature actually do for me? And then we also had the example of like a lawnmower. Like a product feature of a lawnmower is that it has blades on it that cut grass. The benefit of a lawnmower is that since you don't have to, go out there with hedge clippers every day, you save a lot of time is the benefit. So just know what a benefit is and then what a product feature is. What's the difference and what are they? Which is, I would think, pretty easy to keep track of. What is the ultimate goal of an advertisement? And I'll give you a hint. I've already said it, number one. And the other hint is that no, it is not getting people to buy things. That can be one of the things that an advertisement wants you to do. But what is the ultimate goal of every advertisement? Even if it's not asking you to buy something, what is the ultimate goal of an advertisement? Getting you to do what?
To get your attention. Or get your attention.
That's maybe part of the goal, but what does an ad ultimately want you to do? Leah?
Take action and like visit the company's website.
So it doesn't have to be visit the company's website specifically. It can be visit the company's website. It can be buy something. It can also be, if an advertisement wants you to visit a store, whatever it might be. But you're correct, Leah. It's take action. Whatever that action may be, ultimately the goal of pretty much any advertisement and the ending of that AIDA acronym that we're going to get into is action. So Tate, you did have the first part of that acronym, so good job there. But attention is the first part. Action is the end goal. Getting somebody to take action is the end goal of an advertisement. 3 types of print ads, and you have them right there for you: product, image, and announcement. Product, remember, that's something that describes features and benefits. That's like the pillow pad advertisement that you all did. That would be an example of a product advertisement. Image advertisement, remember, image advertisement is just a really big company kind of just reminding you that they exist. For instance, like Nike doesn't really have to describe its product at this point, but if they just like put in a magazine the Nike logo and then maybe like a new Jordan shoe, that would count as like an image advertisement. They can, Nike can kind of get away with just like, here's a new Jordans and then Nike. That would be an example of an image advertisement. Whereas somebody like the pillow pad, who is a little bit new to the market and people don't really understand what it's about, they need a product advertisement to describe all the features and benefits. So that's what you did for your assignment. And then announcement advertisements, those are exactly what they sound like. They're just like if Kohl's or JCPenney's or even GameStop, to get a little bit nerdier, any of them doing a sale and announcing like, hey, it's going to be 50% off, Doc Martens or something, then that would be an announcement advertisement. Anything that just announces a sale or like announces like, oh, for Black Friday, here's all the deals we have, that would be an announcement advertisement. Or for Cyber Monday, again, anything of that nature is an announcement advertisement. It's literally just announcing a sale. And then AIDA, these are all of the kind of goals of an advertisement. And so Tate, you got attention correct, which is the first letter. Leah, you got action correct, which is the last letter. Does anybody remember what the I or the D stand for? So it's attention, something, something, action. What are the I and the D for?
Interest or desire?
Interest is, interest and desire. You got them both right. So attention, interest, desire, and action, right? AIDA, attention, so getting the person's attention, so that and then once you get their attention, making them actually interested in a product, getting them to desire a certain product, and then getting them to take some form of action. Even if they're not going to buy the product right away, they have enough desire that they can at least look it up and see like, oh, if there's a sale on this in the future and I can afford it, like maybe I'll take action. I'll take action now by going to the website. Maybe I'll take action later by buying it when there's a sale. So attention, interest, desire, action. Those are kind of the 4 stages that you want people to go through when they look at one of your ads. Okay, 9 components of a print ad. Again, that's going to be something that you're going to have to look back in your book and your online module. First of all, note that there are 9 components of a print ad. Just knowing that number will possibly help you, hint, hint. But also know what the 9 components of a print ad are. And I'll give you just a couple parts of body copy, just so we're reminded of. So remember, body copy has a few parts, has a few components of its own in print ads. And so if you look at the components of a print ad, headline would be one, swing line would be another, call to action, some sort of image is usually part of a print ad. But just know what the nine components are. Just briefly study that, just so that you can answer any multiple choice questions about it. But also know that parts of body copy, the first part of body copy tends to be the swing line. Remember when you wrote the pillow pad assignment, you had the headline that said like, pillow pad does whatever, or are you tired of like your neck hurting? And then the first sentence of your body copy was something like, well, worry no more. The pillow pad will take care of all of your neck problems. And so that was the swing line. It swung from the headline into the body copy. So that's the first part of the body copy. Then you get into the features and benefits, and then you have your zinger, and then you have the call to action at the very end of your body copy. And so anyway, so that all should help with 9 components of a print ad, and just know what kind of all the parts of the body copy are specifically as well. Okay, anything I need to go back over for advertising, social media, or blogs? Anything that we need me to repeat? Okay. And my keyboard stopped working. All right, that's fantastic. All right. So who pays for public service announcements? Who pays to actually produce public service announcements? I'll give you, maybe this is better a question. If I were to do a public service announcement for real for Mothers Against Drunk Driving, who's paying for that public service announcement? Who's paying to make it?
Mothers Against Drunk Driving.
Mothers Against Drunk Driving. So the person making the PSA, or the company or the organization making the PSA still has to pay for it. So whenever you hear that PSAs are quote unquote free, just remember that they actually cost about as much as advertisements to produce. The free part is where you get airtime, right? But to actually produce a public service announcement, those tend to cost at least as much as advertisements. Controlled versus uncontrolled media. So remember that advertisements are controlled media because they pay and they say that we want to air at this particular time for this particular amount of time on this particular program, whereas PSAs are uncontrolled media because people carry them without any charge. PSAs get aired without them paying the news station or radio station or whoever to carry the PSAs. But you have no control over where that PSA goes. You have no control over how much of it they actually use. No control over when the PSA airs. You know, if an organization decides to air at midday or they decided to air it at midnight, you really have no control over that as the PSA maker. And so it's an uncontrolled media. Because it is free of charge, and the only reason that TV stations and radio stations are carrying in the first place is because they have this FCC federal requirement to serve the public interest, which is the answer to why must PSAs be carried or run by broadcast stations, is because by federal law, they have to do that in order to show that they are quote unquote serving the public interest. Right? So like Mothers Against Drunk Driving, they don't have to pay to get on the air. People just air their PSAs because it shows the FCC that like, hey, we did this thing where we aired this, we're not making any money from it. Nobody's paying us for this, but we use some of our airtime to tell people not to drink and drive. Aren't we great for the public interest? And then the FCC is happy. And then, that TV station or radio station looks good as far as a PR standpoint, all that good stuff. And so why do PSAs have to be carried or run by broadcast stations? It's just because federal law requires it, and they're supposed to serve the public interest. Definition of PSA, more than just the acronym. Again, I'm going to have you guys look that up. Obviously, public service announcement is the acronym, but then just know a little bit more about what that definition is. And I'm going to have you kind of scavenger hunt for that specific one on your own. There are a couple things on this review that I'm just going to have you go out and look for on your own, so I'm not just giving you too much of this. All right. Values of PSAs, just remember that whatever values are espoused in a public service announcement, those should reflect the values of whatever sponsoring organization produced the PSA. So the week before Thanksgiving, you all did that public service announcement for Mothers Against Drug Driving, and obviously whatever you wrote in that PSA had to do with like, hey, don't drink and drive, which reflects the values of the sponsoring organization, which is Mothers Against Drug Driving, or MAD. So just values of PSAs, just make sure that the values expressed in your PSAs reflect the values of the sponsoring organization. All right, can PSA makers bypass mainstream or broadcast media? That's a yes or no question, so what's the answer?
Yes.
Yes, there you go. And why? How are they able to bypass it, Porter?
They can have their own websites or social media.
Yeah, if they can't get something aired on TV, they can just put it up on YouTube. If they can't get something in a print magazine, they can just put it up on social media. So exactly right. Yes, they can bypass mainstream or broadcast media, and they can get their public service announcement out there in other ways. They can make it go viral if they want to, and then that almost forces mainstream and broadcast media to report on the PSA. All right. What is typically included in a PSA package sent to broadcasters? Typically, you have scripts, a list of attached materials, a cover letter. You have different versions of a PSA included in these packages. Typically, they're going to be 10, 15, 20, 30, 60 seconds, so that you have a wide range of different PSA lengths that you can go with. And so if you look a little bit further down in the review where it says 10, 15, 20, 30, or 60 seconds, just know that that's just describing how many different versions of a PSA tends to get included in packages like this. But you also include scripts so that the people reading the PSAs know that whatever they're airing is appropriate for their platform. List of attached materials, so you provide a list of like, here's all of the different PSA lengths, like here's the 30-second, 60-second, we also, just so you know, included a cover letter, and here's like any sort of other material. Sometimes people who make PSAs will send like stickers, or when I was the station manager for KSAU, they used to send like posters and stuff like that. So they'll probably include a list of all the stuff that they gave you. And then they include a cover letter that just is essentially saying, kind of like you would include a cover letter for a job interview, you would include a cover letter as the PSA person, just to say like, hey, here's why I think you should consider airing our PSA. Here's why this message is important. So cover letter, scripts, attached materials, different lengths of the PSA, little goodies, just to kind of get people on your side. Those are typically included in PSA packages. Cost of producing public service announcements, again, same as advertisements, and the person producing the PSA is going to have to pay that. So even though you get free airtime, you don't have to then pay for airtime. You are paying to actually produce whatever PSA you come up with. When are PSAs aired? Again, if you know that they're uncontrolled media, then you know that the PSAs are aired whenever the TV station or radio station feels like. They don't get to have a specific time. They're just whatever the organization they were sent to feels like airing them. That's when they get aired. PSAs versus advertising placements. Again, controlled versus uncontrolled. If you understand that, then you understand how and when and where PSAs are placed. And then 10, 15, 20, 30, or 60 seconds, just remember that tends to be the length of different PSAs that are included in PSA packages. And so even though it's multiple choice, I would just go ahead and review that a couple of times just so you remember like specifically like, okay, these are the timestamps for most PSAs. It's usually 10-second PSA, 15-second, 20-second, 30-second, or 60-second PSAs. And I would say the most common are 15, 30, and 60 seconds, but then sometimes you go a little bit shorter and get 10 or 20. And then finally for formatting, just remember how PSAs are formatted. What's the left column used for? What's the right column used for? Typically they are 2-column formats. Just look at the formatting you used for your PSA assignment, and that should basically tell you everything that you need to know about how PSAs are formatted for your test. So is there anything about public service announcements or any other section of this review that I need to go back over? Okay, let me.
Could you go over where print ads are again?
Where print ads are, that's typically going to be in magazines as far as where print advertising is going to be. Typically, it's going to be in magazines and newspapers, more likely magazines, but it's typically magazines, newspapers, places like that. Just print publications that have advertising. That's where it's going to be. Other questions? Let me see, is my keyboard, sometimes my keyboard doesn't want to work. So if there are no other questions, then I'm going to go ahead and end things there. And then I'll upload, for Kaylee, I'll upload the recording on D2L as well so that you all have it once it finishes publishing, all right? So if there are no more questions, I will see y'all later. Bye.
Bye. Have a good one.
You too. Winston or Claire, did you have questions?